Hi, welcome. My name is John Allen, and I'm the host of Alden New Haven, where once a month we take a different topic of interest to the LGBTQ community in New Haven and Connecticut and explore it. And today I'm just delighted to be talking about a topic that is very topical, and it's about trans youth and their advocates. And today we have absolutely a national spokesperson who happens to live in our area who is here today, and that is Tony Ferriola, who is a certified life coach and a trans youth advocate. And so welcome, Tony.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Well, I just think this is such a great topic to be talking about. It's in the news. People have lots of questions. They really want to, I think that most people want to be supportive. And I think that a lot of folks, we haven't really had an opportunity to talk about this issue.
It definitely needs to be talked about.
Yes, it definitely does. And it's occurring to, perhaps it occurred all along, but now we finally have some language in order to discuss it, and we've opened up our hearts and minds to be able to hear some of these topics.
Yeah, and that's the difference now. A lot of people say to me, why are all these kids coming out as trans? There was no language around transgender, especially when I was growing up, right? So, now they have the language, and they have people who can educate their parents and stuff. So, they're not too young to know who they are. If you have a kid that's sometimes, I think the youngest I've ever worked with was 4.5.
Wow.
She knew who she was, and her parents believed her.
Right.
And that one thing probably is going to save that kid's life.
Right. I know that's the thing. It's like, how when people, they hear, well, someone's so young, how do they really know? But if you talk to anyone that certainly that was gay, my parents knew that I was gay when I was 3. I remember having a conversation with my mom. She said, I always knew you were.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't until I was an adult that we were actually able to talk about it. And so I think that parents have this innate ability to understand their children and listen and watch what's going on. And they know when something is, amiss.
Well, I also think that, people need to remember that everybody in the world has a gender identity. Everyone, okay? So how did you know you were male? It's an internal sense of who you are. You just knew it, right? So if everybody has a gender identity, the only community that's asked, how do you know that, is the trans community. Right? So these young kids, they know it. And listen, so just say they're exploring their gender. Let them explore it. We do not want to be a roadblock for them. Good for them to try to see where they're going to land on their journey. We have to allow that, and we have to do it with love and kindness.
Right. I think that's so important. Love and kindness. It's so
absolutely
so important to recognize.
No shame. No shame.
Right. I think that we've just grown up with the world wants to put people into these two silos that you're either male or female, and we know that there are people that transgress those boundaries.
Yeah, non-binary people. The biggest misconception about non-binary people is that they don't exist, and they do, and they should be honored too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
non-binary, what do you think?
Well, it's people who don't fit into male or female roles. It's fluid. It's just like gender identity is fluid for a lot of people, and it's okay, right? It's okay.
So it's okay when boys want to play with dolls and girls want to be rough and tumble. Yeah. And we've sort of had names like, maybe she's a tomboy or he's a little effeminate.
Yeah.
I think that it's natural for people to want to explore and understand what's going on inside of them.
Yeah, I don't think that like people are that don't treat these children like I was at a school, and I went there because there was a first grader that was transitioning from male to female, and in his class, his teacher had two boxes: a boy box with toys and a girl box with toys. Okay, and if you did all your homework every week, you get to pick out from one of the boxes. So she wanted to pick out from the girl box. She wouldn't let her. She was like, "You're a boy." Right? So I had a meeting with the teacher and the principal, and I looked at her, I said, "Why don't you just have one box? Let they pick out anything they want to pick out." And with tears in her eyes, she was like, "Oh my God, I never thought of that." Because some generations, that's what we were taught. It's in our brains that male is this and female is that, and that's all there is. And we're learning that that is not true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, that's very true.
So, so she didn't intentionally do that, but we corrected
And how
her.
simple. To
Simple.
be-
Put it in a box.
Right, I know. Now, how did you get involved in being an advocate for trans youth?
Well, I transitioned in 2005. And when I transitioned, I didn't know any other trans people. I had a very good friend, Jean Dolan. She's since moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And we were in a band. I was part of a lesbian band called Vertical Smile. Boom, boom, tss. And, and she knew me better than I knew myself. And she came over to my house one night and said, "It's trans night." And I was like, "What is she talking about?" And she put a documentary in. My VCR, that's how long ago it was.
Wow.
And we started watching Gender Knots, and some trans guys were on the beach, and one guy unbuttoned his shirt and said, "I got my chest surgery," and that second, I realized I was trans.
Oh, wow.
I didn't do cartwheels. I actually started having night terrors about it,
wow.
and went to the beach to kill myself. It was
And
all
you talk
intentional.
about that
I
in
talk
your
about
movie.
that in my
Yes,
movie, because at that moment when I realized that I had the power to create myself, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy, all that pain went away. I didn't want to die. Because when I went down there, I really didn't want to die. I didn't know any other choice. I mean, the only thing I heard about trans people was that they were being murdered or they were committing suicide, and they weren't happy. They weren't holding jobs, and I was so unhappy as a lesbian walking into being a trans guy. I couldn't imagine living a happy and productive life.
Right.
So something inside me said, "Stop, create yourself," and that's exactly what I did.
And don't you have a tattoo of that too?
Yep, right there. That's in my handwriting.
Really?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So I hooked up with True Colors. You had Robin on.
Yes, I know Robin is such a
Wonderful
icon.
organization, and I became a mentor. And I was mentoring this 15-year-old trans boy from New Haven. He was really angry, really angry. He reminded me of me when I was his age. And as soon as I said, "Okay, cool, you're trans, that's really great, congratulations, you know who you are, but what else, what's your dreams? What else you want to check out?" He became happier.
Right.
And I knew there was more than this one kid that needed help. So I started actually with Sally Tamarkin, who actually moved out of the area after we started the groups. But her and I started a teen group for kids 13 to 17. And I drove a 25-mile radius around New Haven, handing flyers to every pediatric center and every counseling center saying, "If you have a trans kid." Now, that was 2008.
Wow.
They were looking at me like I had 5 heads.
Right. I
Right?
know. This was sort of before.
Yeah.
I mean, this was
Nobody was
the dark
doing.
ages. yeah.
Nobody was doing this.
I mean, we
work.
tend to think of the community, coming out in 1969 with the
Yeah.
Stonewall Rebellion, and I like to say 1997 with Ellen's coming out
Yeah,
on the cover
yeah,
of Time
yeah,
magazine,
yeah.
and yet, we were dealing mostly with lesbian and gay issues, but now we're, certainly trying to be more enlightened around transgender issues.
So, the funny thing, and I like to mention this because this is how, even the trans community wasn't educated about helping these kids, because I reached out. Listen, I was a newbie. I transitioned not even 3 years prior to this. So I reached out to trans people that were advocates and leaders in the community. I said, "Hey, listen, I want to start this youth group, but I don't want to separate the trans boys and trans girls." Why? And they were like, "It's not going to work. You have to. You cannot put them in the same room." And I was like, "What does that mean?" First group, a trans boy and a trans girl showed up. Second group, nobody showed up. Third group, nobody showed up. Fourth group, one kid showed up. I brought him out for coffee. And now the average size teen group is about 20 kids.
Right.
And then we have a parent group and we have a young art group also. And we've served over 650 families.
Just
since
in Greater
then.
New Haven?
No, they come from all over.
Wow.
We have families from New York that came in, Massachusetts that came in. It's a place where, well, first of all, it's successful because it's not my group, right? It's their group.
Right.
And I think and we don't hold like anybody to our agendas. You know, I have a lot of people that help me. I don't do this work alone. The facilitators I love them. I don't know what I would do without them. They volunteer their time and they come in and they help these kids get through struggles. And parents, you know, are being educated, and it's a magical thing when you walk into a room and you think you're alone in this world,
Right.
and then you see 20 other people. The kids they have hope, right? And so do the parents. Parents walk in, they think they're the only parent dealing with it, and now there's 40 parents sitting there and they're like, whoa.
And the
So-
networking is so important.
It's so important.
Yeah, that people
know.
feel a sense of community.
Yeah. So it's 10 years this year. We're having a 10-year
amazing.
celebration, and a lot of things have changed. You know.
And what is the group called?
Translation. Translation is the teen group. Create Yourself is the art group, and then Transpact is the parents group.
Transpac.
Yeah. And if anybody thinks that they need that support, they can email me at tony@tonyfiorillo.com.
Yes, we'll put
it's
that
a,
up
it's a
afterwards.
closed group. We don't disclose the location
Right.
for safety
And
reasons.
that's important.
It's
because
very, very
there are
important.
Some people, unfortunately, some people are just, you know, have such a hard time with this that,
Yeah.
you know, there is such violence directed at
Oh,
our
yeah.
community.
Absolutely.
And especially towards the transgender community.
It's awful.
Yeah, it is awful.
So that's something that I'm very like, I don't even, like even my best friends don't know where the group, if you're not part of the group or you haven't been asked to come in and speak, then you're not going to know where the group is.
Well, they
You
can
gotta keep them
certainly,
safe.
yes, and they can certainly go through the New Haven Pride Center
Oh,
as well.
absolutely,
You know, to
absolutely.
get connected
Yeah.
with you as well.
You know, a lot of people want to come in, especially with the young kids, and say, you know, I'm an art therapist, I want to come in and watch. It's like,
Yeah.
no, thank you, but,
Right.
you know.
Well, you know, speaking, if they really do want to watch, I think that they should take a look at this film. This is an amazing documentary. And
Thank
I
you,
was
Lori
just,
Petchers.
yeah, I've seen it several times, and I've just and certainly watched it again this weekend. And I'm just impressed with what's going on, where you talk about your own personal story
Yeah.
and the stories of some of these kids and what they've had to go through, but also just the care and the love and the community that's ever present in the. in
It's
the
so
show.
important. I mean, the first thing I always tell people is you need to support yourself, but you need to surround yourself with people who love and honor you. You know, listen, if I meet you and maybe our core values don't match and you're not somebody that I'd probably be friends with, I'm not going to be mean to you. I'm just going to not bring you into my circle.
Right.
Right? And I think that's what, like, non-trans people, if you're trying to understand what it feels like to be transgender and you're not transgender, you're setting yourself up for failure. You'll never know what it's like. I will never know what it's like not to be trans.
Right.
But I still respect people who aren't trans. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like, trans people are not asking for anything special. You know, we don't want the red carpet rolled out when we walk into a place. Well, sometimes I do. I was expecting one today, but there wasn't one here. That's okay. But we just want to be treated like everybody else.
Right.
And that's not too much to ask.
Right. So I think that one of the things that's so much in the news that we hear about is this one issue around bathrooms.
Yeah.
And it's so necessary as a human bodily function.
Yeah.
And yet we create so much drama around all of
Yeah,
this.
it's all drama. It's all
And it
drama.
is drama. And
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, why do you think it's there?
Well, here's reality. Reality is that every single person in the world uses a bathroom according to their gender identity. Another piece of reality is that there's never ever been in the history of the world a trans person who was arrested in a bathroom. And if you're ever in a bathroom and a person walks in and you're questioning their gender, they are more afraid of being in that bathroom than you are afraid of them being in there. All right? We only go in there to use the bathroom like everybody else. Okay? So, you know, we have kids that are so afraid of using the bathroom according to gender identity at schools, because sometimes they're not allowed to do that. They don't eat or drink anything all day, so they don't have to make that choice. That's dangerous.
It's very
It's
dangerous.
harmful, and it takes away from their education. You know.
Yes. And I think that, we're very fortunate in Connecticut that I think that we have an infrastructure here in Connecticut in the Department of Education, and certainly with the leadership in the state, that I think that we understand that and we respect it. But there's many places around the country and certainly around the world where this is not the case.
Well, there's many places in Connecticut that's not the case either. And just because you have laws doesn't mean they're not broken.
Right.
If that was the case, I wouldn't be going to schools and training all the time on this issue. And that's the first thing they bring up are bathrooms and locker rooms.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's the deal. You treat a trans girl the way you would treat any other girl, and you treat a trans boy the way you would treat any other boy. Because that's what they are, they're girls and boys. Drop the T. We need to see them for who they are. We need to meet them where they are. They have the right. They have the right to grow up and be loved and be respected and have those dreams like everybody else does, without being in the fear that something's going to happen to them. That, sometimes we shame, my community is shamed a lot. And shame just stays with you for
I think anyone in the LGBT community experiences that, and hopefully less so now, but still, and I'm sure that it happens very much in the transgender community.
But things are getting better. We have a lot of AC just won the Dorothy Award on Saturday. She's awesome.
Right.
We have medical providers. Yale Gender Program started up about 3 years ago. They're seeing kids from 2 to 24, and now they have a place to go to get competent healthcare and respectful and kind healthcare.
I think that's a very important point to bring up, is what are the resources that people can access if they recognize their child might be transgender, or they want to at least explore that further. So you mentioned there's AC Demdant.
Yep, Demdant, 14 and over.
And that's AC, Dr. AC Demdant is in New Haven.
New Haven. There's the Yale Gender Program. They're also in New Haven.
At the hospital?
No, they're off-site. They're at 1 Long Wharf. They see anybody, I think, from 2 to 24.
Wonderful.
But this is what we need. Unfortunately, we have to have doctors that are educated on kindness, because that's really what it is. But I personally have been discriminated against in medical settings more than once, and harshly. So I know what it's like, and I don't want these kids going through that. They don't deserve it. Nobody deserves it.
Right. And so if someone has a question, they can certainly call you. And do you have resources?
Call me, email me. New Haven Pride Center has a lot of resources. But reach out. Because people are here to help you. That's for sure.
Yeah. So not only are some kids trying to deal with, transitioning or just an exploration, but you're also talking about medical issues and educational issues. Is there anything else?
Well, listen, 51% of transgender youth attempt suicide. Think about it.
Unbelievable.
They attempt it, and it's directly linked to bullying, lack of support from families and others, and the lack of medical care that they need. Okay. But, the struggles that a trans person goes through, majority of the time, is not internal. It's coming from external influences, right? It's coming from people not caring for them. It's coming from people who are bullying them, coming from people who are doubting them and not hiring them. So there's a lot that a trans person has to deal with. And I was at a conference once, and a trans woman was speaking, and she was awesome. And she said, being trans doesn't mean you're crazy, but being trans can make you crazy.
Right.
And we see that too often.
Right.
I have to, the hardest part of my work, John, is to go into a psych hospital and sit in front of a child who tells me that they want to die. I just want to kill myself. What do you say to them? I tell them, please don't, because I love you, and I care about you, and everything's going to be okay. But we lose them.
Right.
And we lose them because people aren't honoring who they are.
Right.
But what happens if they change their mind? Listen to me. I've been doing this work for 12 years. All right, 12 years I've been educating. 10 years I've been doing the support groups. Not once has a kid changed their mind.
Right.
But what happens if they do? You love them anyway.
Right.
Right. You just love them anyway.
Right.
And I think that parents and educators and health providers, they need to see that 51% and take it very seriously.
That's a very real number, 51%.
51%.
And we're talking about a sizable population around the country that is that's transgender.
Yeah. Now, if parents are accepting, it drastically drops. So I think like 3.9 or 4%.
Right.
or maybe no, it's 30%. 3.9 of non-trans people attempt suicide. 3.9% compared to 51%
Right.
of trans youth.
Right.
That's a big gap.
Yeah. Parental acceptance, family
Yeah.
acceptance.
Yeah, I think
know
it
is
drops to
just
like
huge.
30% or
And
something.
because it's been that way in the the lesbian and gay community for so many years, and of course people are transitioning, and I mean they're coming out so much earlier, and I think that this is all so much of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
As more people come out, it becomes easier for others
Yes.
to do so. So
Yeah.
it's so important for the work that you're doing to be out there and letting people know in many different ways that this is okay.
Then if you come out and you're not being accepted, your family's not accepting you, then create a family that will.
Yeah.
Your community will support you.
Right.
That's why it's so important. Support groups are so important.
Yes, yes, it's chosen family.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to mention some of the other things that
Sure.
that you're involved in, and we have the Jim Collins Foundation, and,
Yes.
and I know that you're very involved in this, and I wanted to I wanted you to explain a little bit
Sure.
about what that is.
So I'm actually the co-founder of the Jim Collins Foundation along with Drew Levisser, my best friend, all-time best friend. So Jim Collins was my therapist. When I realized I was transgender, I was having night terrors and I knew I needed help. It wasn't easy. So I went to see Jim. He was awesome. He helped me through like the initial shock of it all and my first surgery, and then he died suddenly. And they don't prepare you for that, I'll tell you that much. That's a whole other show. I met Drew Levisser in 2006 at Yale Trans Week. He's an attorney. He lives in Atlanta now. And when I met him, I just knew that after my chest surgery, my life shifted so much. I instantly thought about funding surgeries for the trans community because nobody should be without that feeling of wholeness just because you don't have the money. Right. But I didn't want to do it alone. Like I was almost afraid. Like how am I going to do this? How am I going to start a nonprofit by myself? Met Drew. I knew that he was the co-founder. He had the same visions. And we named it after Jim. Okay, so the Jim Collins Foundation was born. That's 10 years, or 10-year anniversary. We have funded close to 20 surgeries, and we base the grant on financial need. Mm-hmm. If you have 3 houses and you don't want to put a second mortgage on one, you're not going to get the grant. Right. If you live off of $500 a month and you'll never see the money, you have a chance. Now, the unfortunate thing is that we can never raise enough money to meet the need. Mm-hmm. We get close to 250 applications a year, and we have nowhere near that. We use as much money as we can. We fund as much surgeries as we can every year. We ask surgeons to chip in. We're always asking for freebies.
Are the surgeries being done in Connecticut?
No, we're a national organization. Mm-hmm. So we're just a bridge between the applicant and the surgeon. They pick the surgeon.
Right.
Then they go through an application process. Then that gets sent to a selection committee. The selection committee brings it back to the board, and then we go down the list as much as we can.
Is there any place in Connecticut that does do surgery?
There are some doctors that are doing surgeries. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend that just recently had surgery and wound up going out into Ohio.
Yeah, they're all over the country. There's doctors outside of Connecticut that have more experience than the doctors in Connecticut, but there are a few doctors here that do good work. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And if people wanted to contribute to the Jim Collins Foundation,
they should. JimCollinsFoundation.org. There's a donate button on every page. So, yeah, and really the majority of your donation, because everybody's volunteer. We have a volunteer board. We the only thing we spend money on is marketing, and that's really because we do want to fund as many surgeries. So your money will go directly into saving somebody's life.
Right. Yeah. Now, I know that, you're an artist that came out very clear in the movie, and it was just so wonderful to see you interacting with the kids and, through art.
Yeah.
And it was so great to see that. But you have a book that's coming out.
Well, Volume 1 is out. It's been out for about 2 years. Volume 2 is coming out in June. Yeah. Excited. Artistic Expressions of Transgender Youth. It was. I'll tell you how that whole thing came out. A really quick story. When I started the art group, I was getting calls from the state and True Colors were saying, hey, we have a really young kid. So I was like, well, they can't sit in a support group. I'm an artist, and art got me away from cutting. I used to self-harm, and the way I got away from self-harm is I started to create. So the whole concept behind Create Yourself Art Group was when they get older and their bodies start changing, I want them to give them a creative outlet so they don't cut. Create, don't cut, right?
Yeah.
So
Great message.
so Gretchen Raffa, wonderful Gretchen from Planned Parenthood, used to let me, at the beginning of this, used to let me use a conference room up at Planned Parenthood. It was hysterical. People were walking by like, who's this tattoo guy playing with Play-Doh? But this one girl, very brave, 6.5-year-old, came in to group, and she was really sad. And I had construction paper out because we were doing holiday cards, and I said to her, what's the matter? She goes, I'm really sad. And I said, well, how many of us have been sad? And we all raised our hands, me included. And I said, why don't we draw what sad feels like? And on the back of the paper, write down what the picture means. Because I don't want to talk for them, I want to be a vehicle for their voice, right? And for the ones that were too young to write, I wrote it for them, and it just, every time somebody had an emotion, we would draw it. And so the first book that came out 2 years ago, 2 questions is, what does body dysphoria feel like? And if you had all the money in the world, what would you buy first?
Yeah, there's dysphoria, meaning that there's a sense of confusion or
Well, body dysphoria, like, why do I have breasts I shouldn't? And some, like, in
so
my
more
case,
questioning.
not questioning, but it's internal pain. It really can, it's depressing, it's debilitating. Body dysphoria is major. Somebody really cool wrote the foreword for volume 2. Andrew Solomon wrote the foreword for volume 1.
wonderful.
I know he's awesome. But stay tuned because I'm not disclosing.
Okay. Well, we just have a few moments
Yeah.
left, but I wanted to comment on your tattoos. They figure so prominently in the movie, and
Yeah.
you are obviously so out loud and proud with your
I am.
with your tattoos.
Yeah.
And what is
Laura,
it? Why
love-
so many tattoos?
I love Laura Lovecraft Tattoo, that's why. That's the way this is all my journey, it's all my journey. And it's the way
and
I
it's
express
indelible.
myself.
I mean, it's always going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I really have a lot of thought behind my tattoos. Some of them I designed myself. Like this one people don't see too much. It's 11:04. That's exactly the time that my chest surgery started.
Wow.
So that was a really important moment in my life. So, what's the matter? You're not tatted up? You
I
like
don't
tats?
have-
Well,
I
you gotta
don't
get
have-
one. I'll tell you, Laura, if you're gonna watch this, Laura, just give me a little discount.
right.
Go down there, get some ink. Hey.
That's so great. Well, Tony, it's been so much fun chatting.
Always a
about
pleasure,
this.
John.
I'm just, keep up doing the good fight and
will.
your incredible work. And
Thank you.
our community needs you, and they need a lot more.
And I need our
people.
community, so
Right.
absolutely.
So
right,
wonderful.
cool.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Well, I'm John Allen. I'm the host of Alden New Haven, and we've been speaking with Tony Ferriolo of Trans Youth Advocacy. So thank you very much.